I love your tracks.
Thanks, I love yours too. That doesn't seem right. You helping me? You're doing a good job talking up on this video.
Yep.
No touching. No, no, no. No, 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 no. Hi, crafty people! Today, Elijah and I are here to share with you how I made these bucket hats. Now, originally I didn't intend to make myself one, but I had a few sizing issues when I was trying to make one for Elijah, and it ended up being quite big, didn't it?
Yeah.
So I've made another one for Elijah here, and I've made one for Isabel. I'll show you that one a little bit later in the video too. If this is your first time here on our channel, then welcome. My name is Marie, and this channel is all about motivating mums to make and mend. Elijah is my oldest child. He is almost 5. I also have Isabel, who is 3, Alice, who is 1.5, and our new baby boy, Ruben, who is 2 weeks old. I made these hats using the Made by Jack's Mum bucket hat pattern, which is a free pattern. I'll link it down below if you're interested. I have tweaked the pattern a little bit, which is why I think this tutorial will be helpful for you. I did make a few little changes to the sizing and to the instructions of how to construct it so that it would be even easier than the instructions said. Instead of following the instructions exactly, I have changed it a bit to use what's called the 2-hat method, where I constructed a completed hat on one side, a completed hat on the other, and then joined them together, which to me is a much easier option. I'll explain a little bit more about that as we get to the instruction part of this video. These hats are reversible, so this one here Elijah picked to have trucks on one side and yellow on the other. Unfortunately, as I said, it's too big for him. And on the one he's wearing, he's got trucks on one side and dinosaurs on the other. And Isabel picked 2 different red type fabrics for hers.
Sparks and flowers on each side.
Yes, and it looks really cute, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
You're doing a good job talking up on this video.
Yep.
Some of the other changes I made to these hats are I've increased the width of the brim here, because I just think that if you're going to wear a hat, it might as well be nice and shady, so I've made it extra long. And I've stiffened the hat using some firm iron-on interfacing, which is more than the stiffness recommended on the pattern, but again, I just don't like it when bucket hats are really floppy like this in your face. I'd rather it be wide, stiff, so that it's kept out of your face but really effective for sun protection.
You can't see in your eyes and you can't see where you're going.
Yeah, you crash into something.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll crash into it.
That would be no good.
I'm going to have to go to the hospital to get a Band-Aid.
Hospital to get a Band-Aid? Oh no. That'd be a shame. So I have made some adjustments to the pattern that I am sharing with you today, and as you watch through the video, I'll explain to you what they are as we go through the process of making this hat. So I'm looking forward to sharing this tutorial with you today, and
Let's get making!
My mum makes summer hats.
we're going to be using the Made by Jack's Mum sandcastle bucket hat pattern. There are some little test squares here so that you can measure to make sure that you've printed your page at the right size, but even checking that and also checking on their chart here of what size is appropriate for a certain head size, it still runs very large. Elijah has a 51 centimeter head circumference, so it should seem that I should make him an aged 4 to 7 size hat, the 52 centimeter size, so it fits his head, but alas, that is not the case. The perfect size for him was the aged 2 to 4 size, the 50 centimeter, even though that seems a little small. He even does fit into the same as Isabel's, the aged 1 to 2, which is the 48 centimeter hat. So I do recommend you size down 1 or 2 sizes, depending how tight you would like the hat to be. To make this hat, you're going to need the same pieces in each of the fabrics. So for each fabric, you're going to need 2 brim pieces lined with interfacing, 1 top of the hat piece, and then 2 pieces for the side of the hat. I used firm iron-on interfacing on all 4 of my brim pieces, but if you don't want it that stiff, you could just use a bit of a lighter sort of interfacing. To make the brim a little wider, I've extended it 1.5 centimeters past the brim line that was recommended on the pattern. You only need to extend the outside of the pattern, don't change the sides or the inside of the brim, and then it's ready to cut out. Once all of your pieces are cut out, we're going to place the hat brim and hat side pieces right sides together on themselves with the same design, and sew down the sides to connect them together. For each of those side seams, you just need to use a standard straight stitch, but you will want to make sure that your seam allowance is correct. And because I've had a few sizing issues with this hat before, I made sure to measure after I sewed my first one to make sure that all the rest of the seams would be correct. So you need to make sure to be using a 1 centimeter seam allowance, which is a 3/8 of an inch. It's very important that you transfer the notches from the pattern onto the pattern pieces that you cut out of your fabric, because this will help you line up your pieces as you're pinning them together. The next step that I'm doing here is pinning the top of the hat to the sides of the hat in a circle that we have already created. To do this, it does take a little bit of manipulating of the side of the hat to make sure that it's flat in order that it's following the shape of the circle. So it does take a little bit of fiddling around with in order to pin it correctly. You'll need to match the notches together from the top hat to the side of the hat and pin in those places first, and then just add a lot of pins in between all of those points. Once it's all pinned together, we're going to take it to our sewing machine and sew a straight stitch around that top part of the hat. I'm taking it slowly and carefully to make sure that I'm sewing my stitches in the correct place so that it's not bunching underneath. I'm going to repeat this same step on both of my different fabric types. I use pinking shears to clip around the seam that we have just created, but if you don't have pinking shears, you can just cut little notches in it. It will do the same thing. Doing this helps the seam to sit flat instead of having extra bulk underneath this curved edge. Next, we're going to be attaching the brim to the main piece of the hat. So I'm going to put them right sides together and start pinning where the notches are and the side seams. I'm using wonder clips instead of pins this time because they work better on this thick interfacing. So once it's all attached together, I'm going to sew around it, making sure that I manipulate the fabric as I sew around it so that it's flat and not bunching up underneath the presser foot. This part of the pattern is certainly the most fiddly part, and it's why I like doing it at this point rather than following what the instructions say. The instructions say to attach the brims to each other and the top of the hats to each other, and then to sew the hats together at this point that I'm sewing now, but that would involve sewing through 4 layers of fabric and 2 layers of interfacing, which to me is a bit of a harder way to do things than the way I'm showing you now.
Hi.
You helping me? You helping? Once we finish sewing around this section to attach the brim to the main part of the hat, then this half of the hat is complete. And we're going to repeat the same steps with the other half of the hat and then attach both of the sides together in order to make this hat reversible. I then use my pinking shears to trim away the seam allowance that was left inside the hat. Again, if you don't have pinking shears, you can just cut notches, but seriously, pinking shears, you need them, in my opinion. They are one of the main essential things in my sewing kit. I put the hats with right sides together and matched up the side seams and clipped them together using a wonder clip. Then I clipped at various other places around the brim to hold it in place, because this is where we're going to sew to attach the 2 hats together. If you find that your machine is struggling to sew through this many layers of thick interfacing, you might need to change to a jeans needle, which deals with much heavier sorts of fabric like this. So I'm just sewing my straight stitch around the brim, making sure to leave a gap so that I'm able to then turn the hat in the right way again once I'm done. As with all the sections we've sewed already so far, we're also going to use my pinking shears, or you can use notches, to cut off the seam allowance. It was quite the struggle to cut through that many layers of interfacing, but we persisted and got there eventually. I turned the hat out the right way using the hole that we left in the brim, and you can really start to see the hat taking shape now. We're going to close over this hole that we left in the brim by top stitching the whole way around the brim of the hat. To do that, I've got a different bobbin colour to my top thread to make sure that they match the side of the fabric that they'll be stitching on, and I'm going to do a straight stitch very close to the edge of where the brims are meeting each other. I sew this top stitch the entire way around the brim until I get back to the point where I started, and then I'm going to make other rows of top stitching further into the brim so that I can attach the brims together completely. To do this, I'm going to line up the edge of my presser foot with the row of stitching that I have just done then. I'm going to sew around the brim again at this point, and when I get back to the start of this row of stitching, I'll take my presser foot up and start a new row of stitching right next to that, again with the edge of the presser foot against my previous row of stitching. I'm going to continue that until the entire brim is filled with these top stitches. This adds extra strength to the brims and it also keeps them nicely together. So once it's all completed, it will look like this, with both brims attached completely together and both sides of the hat ready to be used. So there you have it. Thank you for joining us today as I shared with you how I made these bucket hats. If you are interested in making a hat like this, the link in the description box will take you to the pattern, and again you can make the changes that I did if you think that they would suit you or the person that you're making it for. I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel so you can come back and watch some of my other videos, or if you'd like to watch another of my videos that I've already made, there'll be a few linked in the description box down below, or you can click on my channel name and just have a search through for something that might suit you. If you'd like to see what I'm up to during the week, you can follow me on Instagram at mymum.marie or on Facebook at mymummakes as well. Elijah and I are really glad that we got to share this video with you today. I hope it's useful for you and that you get to make some really nice bucket hats for someone in your family as well. So until next time, go get creative and we'll see you later.
And you be on tracks.
Oh, I want to be on yellow because it'll match my earrings better. These are my priorities, kid.